Welcome to Not Just Ads, the show where B2B brands discover how creator-led content drives pipeline, builds trust, and grows long-term brand equity. Each episode, we speak with business leaders, founders, and creators who are defining their categories. I'm your host, Marcus Sherwin, and this is the creator economy for B2B. Hi, and welcome today to Not Just Ads, the creator economy for B2B. I'm joined by Steve Toth. Steve is an owner, founder of SEO Agency and also the SEO Playbook. He's a founder of Notebook Agency and the creator behind the SEO Notebook. He's featured in a number of different publications and podcasts, and he's here to give us an insight in terms of SEO, of how he sees it in 2025. Steve, I'm delighted to join you, for you to join us on the show today. Thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks, Mark. Excited to be here.
Great. So let's kick it off. I mean, it's really exciting to talk with you because a lot of what we hear, especially with B2B and in SEO as well, people are saying, oh, gated content, it doesn't perform. You need to bring so much value. But you are case in point that actually it does. I know you share a lot on LinkedIn, but you also then have a larger format content base behind gated content. You've built a significant subscriber list on the back of this. What's the process in terms of, if you look back maybe 10 years ago, what's changed and what hasn't when it comes to SEO, in your opinion?
Yeah. So just to give your audience a little bit of background in terms of the gated piece, it's my approach is kind of a hybrid, right? So I give all of my information away for free, but I also make people sign up to my email list to read that content. So I have, obviously LinkedIn is a big platform for me, but if you actually want to read my content, you have to sign up to email, and then that is actually distributed just in Notion notes. So you can't access my content online on the website. It's literally just for people on the list. So I think there's kind of been a little bit of exclusivity or even a bit of mystery with SEO Notebook and AInotebook.com. So that's kind of been my angle of attack to creating content, is to create it for free, but really put the focus on building an email list. And just in terms of, where SEO has gone and where it's going, I think it's been fair to say that we've now seen sort of this great decoupling of impressions going up and clicks going down, so-called crocodile graphs that we've kind of named as an industry. And that is a result of the AI overviews, giving people a lot of that informational content that used to drive clicks. So think about question-based Q&A type blogs. No longer getting the traction that they once were able to garner. But at the same time, I think the quality of traffic that is coming from AI is much higher, and that bodes well for the future of those of us who are really on top of conversational search and getting more visibility in there. Ahrefs actually published some information about how 12% of their leads are coming from 12% of their actual signups are coming from LLMs, and that's only from 0.5% of their traffic, and that traffic is converting 24 times higher than previous. That is really a testament to the fact that people are able to qualify and get exactly what they want in an LLM type search versus a Google search where it was a lot more inefficient, where a person was opening up several tabs and doing research, making a bunch of mental notes, to be honest, really skimming a lot of those pages versus getting to the heart of what they want. The LLM search journey has made all of that a lot more efficient. And I think that, that has ultimately meant that we get a lot higher quality traffic that converts at a much higher rate. But overall, the number in traffic is going to be going down.
Yep. Yeah. What do you think in terms of you consult, and I guess you have a lot of clients, and I imagine they're asking you about this in terms of what should they be focusing on? Probably 10 years ago, it's okay, keywords, backlinks, and so on, making sure that you're appearing and you're optimizing and all this for certain keywords. LLMs have kind of changed that. And I know you mentioned there's a framework that you have there. Maybe you could share a little bit more about that and like how that's impactful for businesses now in 2025.
Yeah, for sure. So I know that, your audience is the B2B, and that's very much the ICP that we serve at the agency. And I think from working with so many B2B SaaS companies, companies and even just B2B SaaS providers, everything from legal contract software review to invoice factoring to invoicing software. Like there's been a lot of, A/B testing software, you name it. We've worked with quite a number of B2B SaaS products and service providers. Is that what I realized was there's certain deal breakers that, the ICP has, and, you as a company work hard to improve your product and improve your service so that these deal breakers no longer become an issue and that you're effectively, able to win more business because as you broaden the scope of your service or your product, you become a better fit to more people. So that's all well and good. And, traditionally companies have updated their help documentation, done press releases to, say we now integrate with X, Y, and Z, etc. But what good is that if the LLM doesn't accurately reflect that information for you, right? So that is essentially the goal of the Truth Alignment Framework, which is our approach to making sure that an LLM reflects its answers the way that your company would answer that question, right? And actually measuring that and also understanding what content out there on the web, either from your own website or a third-party website, is influencing the way that the LLM, represents you, right? So it's very much a shift in conversation from, the mentions being the end goal of AI search to really making sure that you're recommended because the deal breakers that person is naturally putting into its, questions for the LLM. I need it to be SOC 2 compliant. It has to be a good fit for marketing agencies. It has to have an integration with Slack. All of these things are, features and capabilities that, people are using to narrow down which product or service they want to go with. And if the LLM's not able to accurately represent you, we'd love it if people fact check these things, but we know the reality is that they're just going to take the LLM as a source of truth. And we're actively measuring how well it understands our clients and working towards correcting the areas where those so-called truths are maybe not fully represented, maybe partially represented, totally misrepresented, or there isn't enough information that the LLM just hallucinates and provides an incorrect answer. So that's essentially the approach that we're taking. And this is especially useful for brands that are already mentioned quite heavily, right? So we're targeting the very established, B2B SaaS products and service providers that, when you ask, like, who's the best CRM software, HubSpot is always going to be mentioned.
Yeah, no, I think it's, and you can see already there's always that shift, what you mentioned at the beginning in terms of how people are making that research and so on. What would you say when you're talking with clients then? So it's kind of from what you mentioned there, you're basically taking a pulse check in terms of where they are. And let's say if that comes back that there's a lot of inaccurate information, what can a B2B brand then do to rectify that in a short space of time? What would you normally recommend?
Yeah, so there's a couple things, right? It's all about identifying the sources that are influencing the answer, right? So when the LLM comes back and tries to answer that question, do you integrate with this? Or, do you have customer support that's available on Sydney time in Australia, or whatever those deal breaker questions are, it's sourcing that information from somewhere, right? And we're actively keeping track and cataloging what sources out there, either on your own website or on third-party websites, are influencing what that answer is. So when the case is, that it's drawing from your own website, and we want to make that the case as often as possible, because obviously we can represent ourselves, the best. And we want to create information retrieval friendly content on those pages. So content that is more likely to be picked up by the LLM. So there's quite a few things that go into that, but essentially, one of the things is declarative phrasing. So very straightforward language that an LLM can easily parse. Having that content take place in the 100 to 300 token chunk. So tokens being these basically representations of words and fragments of words that LLMs use to process and basically corroborate, their answers and get that consensus from. So basically structuring the content content on your web page, identifying which web pages are influencing the answer, and then, effectively adding to those sections to develop a more comprehensive answer. We also look at things like your G2 and your Capterra profiles and how those speak about your company, because oftentimes those are sources of information. We also do very in-depth comparison page campaigns. So how do you compare to your competitor, not just A versus B, but also like, A versus B on specific feature, A versus B on specific ICP, like, best project management time tracking for SEO agencies, for example, would be an example of like a comparison page that we would do. And those are also really effective for helping the LLMs reason efficiently and becoming a source of truth for answering that question. And obviously, if we're controlling that, we can have our full narrative inside those comparison pages. And then obviously there's going to be third-party content out there as well. So we have, since we do link building for SEO, we have over 100,000 sites where we can contact them and get, links. But in this case, we're actually just asking for mentions or like specific tweaks to products, to product information. And in cases where we don't have those direct relationships, sometimes it's just as simple as like not even approaching a website on behalf of a company, but just approaching a website on behalf of a user and saying, you know what, like Asana does actually have time tracking. And in this article, you're mentioning that Asana doesn't have time tracking. And I just wanted to make you aware of that, your article has something that is, completely false. And here's where, you can see that in fact, it does have time tracking. So I think you should correct that. And most webmasters want to have truthful information on their websites. So it's actually not that hard of a conversation to get that corrected.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. In terms of then your own content, you share a lot of content you mentioned, but also then you have your own community as well. What's your process in that in terms of how does that fit into your overall business at the agency? And maybe you can just give us an idea in terms of when you started the agency, how producing content, that building your community, how that impacted the growth overall of your business.
Well, it was absolutely massive. I mean, being able to have a email list grow at the rate that it did. I started SEO Notebook in 2019 while I was still a full-time SEO manager at FreshBooks, which, that was a company that did amazing things for me. We had amazing results and it really was, acted as a springboard for me and a great case study as well. And during that time, I, kind of built up some confidence in terms of we were doing so well, ranking for Invoice Template, which had 300,000 searches a month. We were ranking number one for that. And, I was starting to be like, wow, this is, I'm learning so much and we're doing so well that maybe it's time that I start sharing, some of my strategies with the world. And that's when I came up with the idea for SEO Notebook, which is essentially, one page of strategy emailed out to the list every week. And, it was pretty soon after I launched SEO Notebook that I began to realize inbound marketing and, giving away information was extremely powerful and that, effectively allows the people who end up working with our agency the ability to decide on their own, right? I'm not hard selling them anything. They're realizing that our content is impactful. Many people already implement the strategies that we do and get results. So there's just a natural buzz that happens there. So it was about 9 months after I started SEO Notebook that I built up, a book of business that allowed me to comfortably leave the job that I was in. And I was also very fortunate in that FreshBooks kept me on as a consultant, post leaving them as an employee. So the light bulb definitely went off when I started to get leads from SEO Notebook and we started to sign more clients. And at the same time, that was also, LinkedIn was an area that I was exploring in 2019 where there just wasn't a lot of SEO folks on there providing good information. And I posted probably like every other day on LinkedIn at that time. And that has also really paid off for us long term as well.
Yeah. So it would be fair to say then that your business was built basically on inbound on the back of the content that you shared out. You aren't really contacting clients. Everything was coming from the regular newsletter that you had, but also then the content that you were sharing on LinkedIn as well.
Very much so. So yeah, I'm like more of an introverted type of person. Like, get me talking about something that I enjoy and I can talk forever. But sometimes, like in those like small talk situations and stuff like that, it's not my natural state of comfort. Not to say that I can't do that. Obviously I can do that. And I've learned, you as an introvert, you learn how to handle like those social situations. But personally, that's not what gives me energy. That what gives me energy is to dive into a topic, so deeply and so immersively that it just kind of takes over. And SEO and now, AI search has really, and AI in general, just leveraging AI has been that area of focus for me. SEO for the last 15 years and, AI really for the last three or so years. So that kind of stuff, when I get, worked up about it, I can talk at length and enough to produce weekly content.
Yeah.
Now for 2 newsletters, an AI notebook and SEO notebook. It has been a great thing for me because cold emailing or cold DMing is just not where I would naturally excel. I'd much rather be, being, so to speak, in the lab, tinkering and then sharing the fruit of that labor with people and kind of letting them realize that, if they partnered with our agency that, they would definitely benefit because they've already may have benefited by implementing some of our stuff.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. What do you think now? We discussed at the start, you were saying about the crocodile graph in terms of clicks are kind of taking a nosedive. How are companies seeing that? Because we're talking to some companies and they're saying that they're seeing a lot of their traffic already coming through LLMs. Do you think as either webmasters or anyone within the digital org, whether it's from the CMO down, what metrics should they be looking at now in terms of when they are analyzing traffic, when they are looking at kind of activity? Because the rules definitely have changed in terms of how people are actually getting their information of what you mentioned. What are kind of KPIs that people should be looking at now that the user base are going to more LLMs as opposed to Google maybe 5-6 years ago?
Well, 100% revenue. That is in addition to focusing on things like the engagement of that traffic, right? So the traffic with Google, unfortunately, is a little bit muddy right now. I mean, it's always been muddy to a degree with SEO, but now with Google's lack of specific reporting for AI overviews, there's less transparency than ever. But in terms of like looking at ChatGPT or Perplexity traffic and stuff like that, we can look at what is the engaged sessions. So in Google Analytics, you can basically set a threshold for if a user spends a certain amount of time, clicks a certain number of things. These would be known as engaged sessions. We can look at the conversion rate specifically from LLMs, and that's markedly higher than what we were seeing with traditional Google traffic. We're also looking at the growth rate of LLMs, really like year over year, we're seeing in the thousands of % increase, and that's only going to continue. So on AInotebook.com, we've shared some really cool dashboards where users can just quickly select their property. And I'd be happy to share that with you as well, Marcus, if you want.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. Yeah.
You would just open up that dashboard and it's got kind of all of your LLM traffic. All you have to do is select your GA4 property that's attached to that Google account. And, it will pull in things like your engaged sessions, your key event conversion rate from LLMs, your session time on LLMs. And what you'll notice is that the engagement, more like 9 times out of 10, is higher on LLMs, albeit, of course, the traffic is much less. But if you look at a trend like what I mentioned with Ahrefs reporting 12% of signups coming from only 0.5% of the traffic, imagine when that's 10%, 20%, 50% of the traffic, it's going to be massive.
Yeah, definitely. I guess that leads to the other question then is in B2B, we kind of see that only 5% maybe of people are in market. That's according to the B2B Institute research that they did. 95% are outside. So the discovery phase is they're asking those questions to LLMs. Do you think that the way that people are actually getting information now, that marketers need to be thinking differently in terms of how they're positioning themselves, because people are a lot more educated now with the access of information through LLMs. Do you think they need to kind of change their strategy in terms of go-to-market now?
I think if, especially, yes, 100%, but I think especially in areas where you know that your ICP is quite tech savvy and that your ICP is leveraging LLMs, 100%. Like we were speaking with a prospect whose ICP are literally, data analysts, right? And those data analysts, as we could imagine, are leveraging LLMs as a core part of their job. So there's no way that they're not using LLMs to research the tools that can benefit them, right? So if you can identify that your ICP is a heavy AI user, I think that's going to be, you're going to have to even rush out of the gate faster than somebody whose ICP might be, less inclined to use that. So that is, one of the things that I think, when I speak with a client whose ICP is more tech savvy, you think like things like cybersecurity or cloud solutions and stuff, like these are no-brainers that we really have to jump towards LLM visibility a lot faster than some other niches. But absolutely, I think this is an area where it's just an inevitability. It's just a matter of, how fast for certain industries. Yeah,
definitely. And then just to wrap it up, what do you think in terms of the future? Any predictions over the next, say, 6 to 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we're doing with the Truth Alignment framework, I think a lot of people will follow that. Right now, the people are kind of looking at like traditional SEO in terms of like, ranking for that main keyword, getting the traffic and, converting users. People are looking at LLMs the same way, like, ask what is the best CRM software, get a solution, kind of, tick that box, we're in the right. But like, what's next for those brands, right?
Yeah.
Next is going from mentions to recommendation, right? And from the starting line to the podium. And what we're seeing is that, users are qualifying themselves. They have the ability to qualify themselves so much more efficiently than they did with Google, right? Traditional search, whereby we're relying on comparison pages, we're relying on scanning multiple documents. Now it's like, I'm a marketing agency. We really care about time tracking and we want a project management system that's going to suit a team of 30 people. Right? I can ask that question into the LLM and get an answer back for a software that is exactly, hopefully, meeting those criteria. And if a company is not doing a good job at saying, I'm a project management solution with an excellent time tracking feature that is perfect for SEO teams of 30 people, if they're not doing a good job at meeting that ICP's criteria, then the LLM is not going to do the justice of recommending them to their clients. So I think really, it's now asking about like what's next beyond just the simple mention. And, that's exactly that's the question that, we're answering for our clients with the Truth Alignment framework. That's if you want more information, it's notebook.agency/truth. There's a wait list that people can sign up for right now.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll leave the link in the show notes as well. This was a really interesting conversation, and I think it's really something that's a lot top of mind for especially B2B marketers in the place. So, Steve, thanks very much for joining us. I will leave your, before we finish up, what's the best place to reach you, or where can people find you?
Yeah, so SEO Notebook and AInotebook.com are the two newsletters that I have. And then Steve Toth, Toth on LinkedIn is also a great place to connect with me. I pretty much post, every day almost. So if you're interested in following me on a lighter level, LinkedIn is great. The newsletters are fantastic too. If you like what you see in the newsletters, little R reply and you'll get a reply from me.
Great. Steve, thanks again for joining us. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thanks so much, Marcus.
Thanks.